Hello, everyone. Yeah, we got a full panel today. It's awesome, and I want to make sure that that clicking sound is not happening on my end. Yeah, so I just had to get political just for a second here because a person I know we all share an equal love of Donald Trump here, Mike, right?
Yeah,
So
sure we did.
so yeah, so I mean, and I have nothing against Donald Trump at all, but did you see Jeb Bush on Steve Colbert? He was really good.
Mhm.
On my DVR.
Yeah, he was good, and you know, and I'm usually not. I mean, I'm a Democrat for what it's worth. I came up from a Republican dad, Democratic mom, so I get both sides. But it was funny because the Trump stuff is so bizarre and out there the way he's acting that
Yeah.
I'm watching Jeb Bush and I'm like, man, this guy's pretty good. And then it occurred to me what the Republican Party is doing. They are throwing out this crazy ass person, so that now me, the person who's like, this guy's not nearly as crazy as him. So Jeb Bush suddenly looks okay to me.
I wish that was true, but Donald Trump is a lunatic. So and cannot
He's such a lunatic. That's the point. He's such a lunatic that this is actually a really good strategy for a Republican Party that has lost people. Like I would never ever have considered voting for Republican. I don't know. But I would always vote for the best person.
That way, I don't know if it was planned.
no, it's not. It wasn't planned. It wasn't planned.
But it is working out. I'm just telling you that, and I'm not saying that I'm going to still vote. I don't know. I'm not. But it was funny. It occurred to me how crazy.
Well, right now,
it is.
Right now, between the three non-politicians who are running in the Republican primaries, and granted, the first caucus is not until next February, I believe.
Right.
Ben Carson, Donald Trump, Carly Fiorina, who have never run for political office once, they have over 60% of the vote. That's not going to last. I heard somebody who was that's going to dissipate. So Bush, Rubio, Walker, all these guys who have held elective office, they're going to have another crack at it. But Donald Trump is a lunatic, so I'm trying not to even pay attention to it because I don't think he's going to be there next year.
I'm just saying, there's a strategy. There's a movie here in a way because these guys have done something strategically that I never would have expected, like thrown out.
Who's going to play Donald Trump in the movie?
Yeah, I don't know. What did he said? Colbert's line is Trump is not white American. He's Oompa Loompa American. I thought that was pretty funny. Anyway, Colbert's show has been pretty friggin' good too.
It has. I haven't watched it yet, but I'm excited to watch.
There's definitely a weirdness to this whole band thing and everything with him.
I like it. The set's gorgeous. I like the interaction with the band. The set's cool. The opening animation is just brilliant.
Oh yeah.
Sorry, it's the TV person in me.
No. I hear you totally.
That probably cost about $5 million.
Oh,
but the motion stop opening.
Oh yeah.
The motion stop opening is just brilliant.
It's amazing.
Heck, I've got an extra seat if you want to go.
Really?
I do. Yeah, the person we were going to go was going to go with us backed out.
Oh boy! Wow.
Same night though, as the hockey game you wanted to go to, so you have to make a choice.
I know. I have to decide between a hockey game and this. All right, let's talk later. That sounds good.
All right.
Awesome. All right, let's start the show because we got Kevin back from Toronto, and we've got all kinds of cool things to talk about. We're going to project team. We're going to project the Young Guns under 23 team. Let's get this straight now. It's 23 and under. It's under. Yeah. So it's an under 24 team. We were totally confused about this yesterday.
I think half the world was until the press conference.
Yes, Brendan Saad is eligible for the Young Guns team. So just so we know.
He's not eligible. That's the only team he can play for.
Right, exactly. We were like, I thought it was an under 24. They're calling it the 23 and under team.
What's our?
It's all the same. If you're 23 years old, you're on the Young Guns team. That's how it works.
Yeah.
If you're 23 years old, 364 days old,
right.
You can play.
You're on the Young Guns team. So and it does make a big difference because there's a whole lot of 23-year-olds on that team. So anyway, moving on. Let's move on. And then we're going to get into Team USA because Kevin can help us finish the last couple spots there because he knows that group better than anyone I think on the planet. So here we go. In order we'll do today will be Mike and then Dan and then Russ and then Kevin. Good?
Good.
All right. It's the 10th of September. My lovely wife's birthday.
Happy birthday.
Yep, she came to me a couple days ago. She's like, I'm gonna be 48. I'm like, no, you're not. You're gonna be 47. And she's been the happiest person since then. Like for the last 2 weeks, that she is so happy that I gave her back a year of her life that she thought for sure she was turning 48.
She was happy until you revealed the age on the webcast.
I know. Well, she doesn't care. And believe me, if Kevin, you've seen my wife. How old is How old does she look?
35.
I thought she was in her mid-30s. So.
Yeah. No, she looks much younger. I was very surprised when you told me how old she was.
Yes, that's how old Jocelyn looks. Yes, she's 35. I mean, and I've heard that too. We've asked people all the time about how old she is. Yeah, she does not. She's 47. Wow. All right, here we go. September 10th. I know that date. Got it. That date's drilled in my head. Right.
Thursday.
Yeah, that not so much. Yeah, here we go. Hello, Hockey World. It's Thursday, September 10th, 2015.
I'm Michael Agello.
Dan's frozen.
Dan's locked up.
I'm Russ Cohen from Sportsology.
I'm Kevin Allen of USA Today, and that's Frozen Dan over on the left.
Stoic Dan Petru.
That's Dan Petru, and he and I am Eklund. And you're watching the HockeyBuzzCast on HockeyBuzz.com. This is the podcast that comes to you Monday through Friday, around 1 o'clock Eastern Time, live, and then you can of course watch it at your convenience, whenever you wish to, as many times as you wish to. And we really appreciate all the viewership just going up and up and up. We love that you guys like what we're doing. So thanks. And if you don't like what we're doing, send an email to Eklund@HockeyBuzz.com, and I'll try to fix it. It's the only way I can get Mike in line is if I got emails. I need ammunition, guys. If you don't like Mike, give it to me now.
Oh, great! Thank you. Prepared for the flood. Jeez.
Eck, what's your email address again? I'll send it back.
Eklund@HockeyBuzz.com. All right. So let's start with Kevin, because Kevin's back from the media frenzy. Well, not frenzy, but just fun old times. You said you had a great time up in Toronto.
It's just great. The media tour, national media tour for the NHL Players Association, has just gotten better every year. And this year we had 39 players. So I interviewed 39 players over 2 days, 15 minutes each.
Sorry. Wow.
Are you making a latte?
Sounds like a poltergeist.
That's crazy.
Oh, okay, we're done.
All right, go ahead.
Yeah, but it was great, and I really enjoyed the format, and when you get them before training camp, and it's the same way when I used to be a baseball writer in a previous life. If you got baseball players in spring training when no one had lost a game in the regular season, everybody was happy, and that's the way it is here. And some interesting thoughts. Talked to James Van Riemsdyk and Dion Phaneuf. And Morgan Riley, and all of their messages were all the same. They're not rebuilding. That may be the plan, but Van Riemsdyk was the most adamant. He goes, I'm not aboard on this plan. I'm coming to the rink with the expectation that I'm going to try to win every game. And he said, I don't think Mike Babcock is rebuilding either. The point is that everybody is on board as if this Maple Leafs team is going to be just disastrous. But they just think with Mike Babcock coming aboard and some of the additions they made, they feel like they can be competitive. No one said we're going to win the Stanley Cup, but they did not see that they're in a Buffalo Sabres type situation. So I thought that was interesting.
Yeah.
It was interesting to get a take from Zdeno Chara and Patrice Bergeron and Tuukka Rask about the Boston Bruins. And again, from the outside looking in, we see they traded Dougie Hamilton and they traded Milan Lucic, and they look at it as, this is just some changes, but they see that they're in contention for the playoffs, and they think they're as good a team as they were, last season, which was, when you hear them talk about it, they're pretty convincing, to be honest with you. And I really enjoyed the interview with Nick Bukestad about the Florida Panthers and the impact that Jaromir Jagr had on the team last season. And to hear him talk about how important a 42-year-old player is, it's pretty interesting. So he's very bullish about the team, and then the other thing I'd point out too is that everybody also is very bullish about the Columbus Blue Jackets this season. There was a lot of talk about what that team has done, and the addition of Brandon Saad and Johansson getting a year older, and that team kind of coming on. And the other thing, we've talked a lot about what the toughest division is. I thought based on the conversations I had with players, they see it as the Central. Now, I didn't survey. I did survey players on a lot of things, but that was not one of them. But just as a general thought, there was a lot of talk about, holy cow, look at the Central. So.
Every team in the Central thinks they're a playoff team. That's well put, and I think that is accurate. As a fun piece, and this will be coming out in USA Today Sports probably Monday or Tuesday. I'm doing a piece on. It started out to be a piece about Henrik Lundqvist being maybe the best dressed man in the NHL, but it evolved into a piece about why the Swedish players are the best dressed players in the NHL. And, there were a lot of funny comments about that. So that piece will be coming out next week. That's awesome.
Let me jump on the first point that you made. Is, what would you expect from him? I'll log off and come back.
Sorry, we'll come back in. Yeah, just No, a couple things, Kevin. I mean, really, the Central, obviously, that's. I like. We talked about Bukestad yesterday a little bit. Because I actually put him on my projected Team USA roster.
Yeah, he's on mine too.
He's on yours too, yeah. Because I was alone in that one.
You were
with Mike and Russ.
I think he's close. I would put him on the bubble.
Well,
we just thought the skating was more of an issue than having him there.
I would say that he's not a lock,
right,
to be sure, but I can tell you, without fear of contradiction from the people in charge, that he's very much in the mix.
Very much in the mix, you're right. There you go. Makes sense. Mike, you want to try him?
Yeah, what I was going to say is what Kevin said off the top about Phaneuf, Van Riemsdyk, and Riley. I mean, as somebody who is an observer of the Leafs and Leaf fans who are watching the webcast, I mean, if they didn't say something like that, I would be worried because, that's the point of view that they have to have. But, I mean, Babcock was on Toronto radio on Monday and, questioned openly how the heck they're going to replace not only the 30 goals that they lost with Kessel in the deal, but the fact that they were 24th in the NHL and they probably need 20 to 30 more goals to get into the middle of the pack to even have a chance to compete for a playoff spot. They didn't replace those guys. They replaced them with hole pluggers like P.A. Parenteau and Mark Arcabello. And I'm not saying that they're going to be a pushover, but I just don't see the upside there right now. I mean, it can change during the season if Kadri steps up, if Lupul stays healthy, but there's a lot of factors.
Yeah.
But right now, I think they're a bottom 5 team, and they're picking up guys like Curtis Glencross and Devin Setaguchi to plug holes as possible tryout guys, and they could make the team. And those guys didn't do a lot last year in the NHL. So
those guys smell like trade deadline people, don't they?
Right. Exactly.
Yeah.
They really do. I mean, Glencross especially is a perfect trade deadline guy. He's going to help a team. No, I think that, but I'm going to change your terminology a little bit, Mike. That not that they have to say that, but not that they have to think that way. But I honestly do believe, from talking to players, and Kevin, you can back that they actually do think that way. This is not a have to think a certain way. They really do. I mean, players are eternal optimists. You could tell them. I mean, they could have anything. They could know that they lost all their best players, and they would still look around the room and say, what, we can do this. We can do this. We can make this. It's an optimistic thing. It's a part of the NHL mentality, and probably sports, and I think probably professional athletes in general always think that they can do something.
I mean, I said this last year. Players don't tank.
No.
Right. It bugs me when I hear fans talk about, well, this team is tanking. Well, no, they're not tanking. Management is tanking.
Right.
Coaches don't tank and players don't tank.
Yeah.
That's up to players play the best. But I think this is a little bit different. I'm getting some feedback here.
We're getting it once in a while too. So try.
Just keep going. I think it's intermittent.
Anyway, the difference is I thought there was some real sincerity with Phaneuf and Morgan Riley and Van Riemsdyk about the potential of this team. Now, as I said, nobody was suggesting this is a great team, but I just felt they really have looked around and said, hey, we lost Phil Kessel, and they didn't say this, but my analogy would be their thought process seemed to be, we actually could have played better last season had we all kind of come together, and really Phil Kessel is gone, but what if he had been injured and lost for the season? maybe we could have picked it up. So I think they think they're a little better than people say they are. So it'll be interesting. I don't discount what Mike said about them being a bottom 5 team, because you wonder where the goals are going to come from. But I was told something interesting by an NHL team executive who I trust, who swears that Mike Babcock made the decision to keep Phaneuf, that he wanted him. He wanted him there for the season, and that he stood up for him and said, maybe now is not the time to trade him. Well, if that's indeed true, then that tells me that Mike Babcock, still sort of entertains the possibility that they need to be competitive this season.
Yeah, I mean, we brought that up at the beginning. You can't tell Mike Babcock, Mike, you need to drive this team into last place. He won't do it.
No.
I'm with you on that. I've had arguments with Leafs fans on that, but knowing Mike Babcock and Lou Lamoriello the way I do, I get it that they understand rebuilding, and but I think rebuilding to them is okay. We've got Kapanen, we've got Nylander, we've got Marner. Kadri's still young, Morgan Riley's still young. Let's be careful in how we bring these along. Let's develop them the right way. Let's be smart on our draft picks. I don't think they're the kind of guys that say, let's just blow off this season and hope we get Matthews. I just don't see that. I mean, I know they're rebuilding, but I don't know that they're rebuilding the same way Buffalo did. I'm just not, I'm not accepting that. I wrote a column about that, where I said I still believe in my heart, and I said this to Riley and Van Riemsdyk, and they were completely on board. I think this will be a tough year, and I think they'll compete for the playoffs next year with the core group they got. I think they're farther down this rebuilding road than other people seem to believe they are.
Well, final thing on this, and we'll go to something else. But I think you're right. I don't think that this is a bottom-out scenario where they're going to be 30th. But I do think what is going to happen is during the year you're going to see the only thing similar to Buffalo with the Leafs is you may see players moved. They have players like Joffrey Lupul. They have players who they signed to one-year deals like Sean Matthias. If they thrive, and they either have a chance to trade a guy who has a couple years left in a contract that's a little inflated, or trade a guy who's going to be a UFA at the end of the year, they're not going to hesitate to do it because they can bring back young assets. They have a lot of young guys in the minors. They want to make sure that they develop slowly. They have a lot of veteran players up in the NHL on one-year deals. If they're in contention, I think they're still going to be sellers at the deadline. Whereas if this is a team that was going for the playoffs, I think that they would hold on to those players to make a run for 8th place. So it's going to be interesting how it unfolds. But I don't think they're going to be.
Lupul's a guy that would get dealt, but Matthias is a young asset if he turns it around or he moves to that next level. So I'm not sure they're trading Matthias. I think you might be wrong on that.
Well, I mean, it depends on if they can re-sign him for. I
think the difference, Mike, and this is the last thing we'll say on this. I think the difference to me is that Buffalo traded away goalies last year, right? That were keeping them in games.
Right.
It's a lot different when, sure, if Lupul's having a heck of a season and his trade value suddenly is going through the roof, then they can look at it like, okay, we can trade him to get back assets.
Yeah.
But, that's why they trade him, not because he's having a good season and we want to lose games. It's because his trade value has suddenly risen because
that's what I'm saying.
They do need one or two more elite prospects, though. I mean, they have some nice prospects, but they need another one or two.
I don't get that. I mean,
I'm not saying they're going to tank or anything, but if they really, Marner's a nice player, Nylander's a nice player. They both have question marks. They need someone else in that group.
I don't know if Nylander has question marks. I think Marner does. But this draft, they'll get more prospects. They will. I mean, they'll be good
they have the Penguins' first-round pick, too.
Yeah, 2 firsts and 13 picks.
Right, the Penguins pick could be decent.
I went with the last word on this, and then we'll go on, because I got to say, what they're going to do is whatever Mike Babcock says they're going to do.
Yeah.
Right.
He's a $50 million coach who can't be fired.
Yeah.
So, he's gonna, if he wants to be competitive, I saw him be competitive with 13 players in a couple of games from his minor league team.
Yeah.
And if he decides, I'm going to be competitive, he'll force that team to be, better than it is. Now, he's not going to transform it into a playoff team or a Stanley Cup contender with the roster he has. But if he wants to be competitive, he will be.
Yep, definitely. All right. Well, let's move on. Before you do the Young Guns team, I want to go through what we came up with yesterday, Kevin, for our offense for Team USA, and tell us as I run through these players. Just stop me if one of these players isn't on your front roster.
Okay.
Okay. So, and we did it with Patrick Kane for now, just because.
Yeah. No, you have to.
You have to do it for Patrick Kane for now. So Pavelski, Parise, and Kane.
Yep.
Pacioretty, Tyler Johnson, and Kessel. Kessler, Backus, and Stepan.
Yep.
Van Riemsdyk, Foligno, and Okposo.
Yeah, I mean, all those guys are very much in contention. Bukestad.
Oshie and Bukestad and Wheeler.
Yeah, I mean, those are kind of the bubble guys, but a lot of people think that, Bukestad, because of his size and the fact that he's, developed pretty dramatically over the last couple of seasons. Do not forget to Abdicator. They're going to play a very rough, physical style of play, so they may add some muscle. And Abdicator is a feisty player who's now developed an offensive upside, so he's very much in the mix as well.
Now, so if we get into the point where now there are bubble players here, we'll say if you think any of these guys have a better chance than Oshie, Bukestad, or Wheeler. I mean, I put Oshie in there because I think this penalty, they're going to do a penalty shot thing again, right, to solve these overtime games.
Well, yeah, but I would not say Oshie's. I mean, you can list him as a bubble player, but right now I'd say he's on the outside.
Okay, on the outside. Okay, so then we have Colin Wilson, Brock Nelson, Stastny, Kreider, Bobby Ryan, and Ryan Callahan not on the team. Any of those guys you think are on the team?
Yeah, Callahan will be on the team.
Okay, so Callahan will be.
Yeah, because you're going to look for that fourth line. You're going to be looking for guys who can kill penalties. You're going to look for guys who are feisty. They think this is going to be a very physical tournament. You look at the guys who are in charge: Ian Lombardi, Brian Burke, Paul Holmgren.
Right.
We know what kind of team they're going to want, and Callahan is going to be a member of that team.
That's a great
point.
But
here's the thing. If we're looking for that physical element, isn't Chris Kreider more physical than Ryan Callahan at this point?
Well, Chris Kreider, I think, is going to be a real possibility because of his speed, too. So, yeah he's in the mix. I mean, you're splitting hairs when you get down to the bottom, but I don't see any U.S. team without Ryan Callahan on it.
So Ryan Callahan's one of the top 12 forwards, then you're thinking. So.
Or he's 13, you know what I mean?
Right.
So.
Right. Do you put him ahead of Derek Stepan?
No.
Or Van Riemsdyk or Foligno?
Van Riemsdyk, I would say, is on the bubble this time around.
Okay.
So.
Yeah, that's sort of what we talked about yesterday as well.
I'm surprised. I would be surprised, but you know more than I, Kevin.
I just feel like if we're going down that same road, we're going to be looking at the same thing again. We're going to be in the third. The United States is going to be in the third period of a close game, down 1-0, looking for goals.
Yeah. No, that's
what Brian Burke wants.
Yeah, and they're two legitimately their 2 or 3 snipers are Pacioretty, Kane, and Kessel.
Right.
Right. And that's it. Now, I also Colin Wilson. Was another one I would throw in there as well.
Yeah, I haven't heard much about him. I mean, we've talked about him. He was great early, then late he faded, and then he came back in the postseason. So, yeah, I've not heard his name mentioned a lot.
Okay, so defensively, McDonough, Carlson, Falk, Suter, Bufflin, Shattenkirk, Eric Johnson, and Nick Leddy. That's what we came up with yesterday.
Yeah. All those guys are in the mix. I think Bufflin is has a better chance to make this team than he had the Olympic team because they're going to want a physical presence. I think Carlson and McDonough and Suter are locks. Falk might as well be a lock just because the way he played last season. Yeah, I mean like Shattenkirk, because the style of playing, then they have other guys. Like he may not, be a lock, but Eric Johnson had a great season and he's big. When I was embedded with the Olympic selection process last time, I remember Paul Holmgren, who's part of this now group, speaking up for Eric Johnson in the season he was having then. And Johnson has really, in the last couple of seasons, sort of turned up the volume on his game a little bit. So
what about Jack Johnson?
Jack Johnson's in the mix for sure. Brian Burke loves him.
Yeah.
Ian Lombardi loves him. And both of those guys stood up for Jack Johnson. And during the Olympic selection process. The quote from Burke always about Johnson is, if we're playing Canada, the last guy that I worry about, playing well would be Jack Johnson, who, has been on record as saying, I hate Canada. In terms of playing, the rivalry, I don't think he actually hates the country. But
no, I love it. And so the other guys on the bubble for us, tell me if any of these guys are, in your minds, definites. Well, Jack Johnson, obviously, we just talked about. Paul Martin, Torrey Krug, Goligoski, Cam Fowler, and Matt Niskanen.
Yeah, I mean, of that group, Cam Fowler is the closest to being on the team, but you're not. It's going to come down to like Shattenkirk, Cam Fowler, all those guys that have some offensive upside. Or Keith Yandel would be another one.
Yandel in there too. Yeah, I forgot to mention Yandel.
You're only going to have one of those. That would be my guess.
Do you think Orpik is a bridge too far in terms of being a little too old and too slow?
I do, but I've heard this. When the guys that run the U.S. program, when you start talking about playing in like a World Cup in the small ranks, they always comes down to, all right, when we play Canada, we're going to be playing a physical series, and that's when you need to be So, I wouldn't completely rule them out, but maybe because Bufflin's here.
Right.
He has less of a chance. But
right.
the U.S. Selection Committee always seems to like Brooks Orpik because of his physical game, and he plays with a little bit of an edge. So, and they're going to be talking a lot about that this time.
Definitely a leader, right? So, all right. So Quick, Schneider, and Bishop, 3 goalies.
Yeah, I think that's a pretty good mix.
Yeah, it makes sense. I mean, obviously Ryan Miller, Jimmy Howard, and Craig Anderson are the others.
Yeah.
But we thought Quick and Schneider could battle it out probably for that. Is it possible that Schneider takes that spot from him?
I don't think so, but you can't rule it out. I mean, just like a lot of these spots, I think it's going to come down to how well they play early, and like Van Riemsdyk, maybe on this team. I know, like some people have talked about, like Phil Kessel, is he a lock? Well, I think he is a lock, and I know that they've looked at some of the game film at the Olympics, and were surprised at how, when you watch him individually, especially in the big games, he was pretty visible. And if you go back,
points, he had 8 points in 6 games. He had twice the amount of points as Kane.
Yeah, and to be honest, it was more. It wasn't the points as much as they when they watched the video. He was just dangerous. And if you go back to that 2010 gold medal game, I think Kessel rung one off the crossbar. That they could have won it. So for those who think that Kessel is on the bubble, I don't see that at all. So. The problem is they got a lot of wingers, and they're still a little short on centers, and some good wingers are going to be left off. There's no doubt about it.
Yeah.
Kessel is more indispensable if Kane isn't playing for the reasons we were hinting at, and I think Van Riemsdyk. If Van Riemsdyk scores at a rate close to what he did with the Leafs last year without Kessel on his other wing, if he scores 20 to 25 goals. I think he makes it for sure, because he played with Kessel the last 4 or 5 years, and that was a dangerous combo in Sochi. So I think that he would make it because of that.
Yeah, but I can't help but think of the New Jersey Country Club, Bobby Ryan, James Van Riemsdyk thing going on with those GMs. I hate to say it, but that's.
Yeah, but I don't think Bobby Ryan's going to make it. I don't think Bobby
Ryan's going to make it either. But I'm just saying, I think that they are sometimes viewed in similar ways.
I don't think so. I think they really like Van Riemsdyk.
Okay.
And some of them really like Bobby Ryan. But I just think you're splitting hairs when you get there. And that's the hardest thing, I think, for fans to catch on, is if their guy doesn't get in, they're just bitter and they can't see. Well, yeah, but the guy who got in, really good too. So.
Yeah. No, it's really hard to pick. All right, so let's move on to the Young Guns team. Okay, and we're going to get into this now. So, this team was meant. We talked about yesterday that we finally have a GM for this team in Chiarelli, who I think is a good pick. And definitely, we'll likely to bring Connor McDavid with him from Edmonton for this team. And I was thinking about the Young Guns team, and it was interesting. Who is it that said the other day that I heard one player interview said they're going to be so dangerous. One of the players on was it it was the Kings. It was Drew Doughty who said that they were so dangerous that that they had such young legs that they were going to be really in a tournament like this with quick games, with games being played at a fast pace near each other, that this team's going to be dangerous, and that some of these players are more used to that kind of style than some of the NHLers are, which I thought was interesting. And I'm going crazy again, right, as far as sounds go. All right, so, and I also, but I can't help but think that our society has made it so that younger players now are better suited to play in the NHL. I was thinking about why it is, and obviously training. Some of these guys play hockey. When you're in a major hockey program, you're hockey year-round, so it's all the time. Where, when we were kids, you could play 3 or 4 different sports. Now, you really can't. At age 10 or so, I've seen it in our own soccer world that you're pretty much asked to specialize into one sport around age 10 or 11. And these guys play nothing but hockey, most of them, from that point on, and they don't grow up drinking Coke and eating Fluffernutter sandwiches every day like we did. They grow up eating better foods, and they're better conditioned. So this is definitely a new group, a new breed. So
the one thing after spending all the time with these younger players for about last couple of years and seeing how they interact in a tournament like this, they are going to be very united because they always feel like they have something to prove. Because right. At the NHL level, most of them aren't getting top minutes, most of them aren't getting top power play time, but some of them feel like they could. And this is going to be their opportunity to sort of show everybody, hey, we could beat these older players or veteran players, and this is what we can do. And so I think they're going to be a really dangerous team as a result.
Well, I mean, Ak, I know you're going to go through the roster right now, but and looking at it, the one thing I'm curious about is whether players who are going to still be in junior or still be, say, in the American Hockey League are going to be completely ruled out. Like, say, I know Nylander is a Swede, so he wouldn't be part of this, but a player like Dylan Strome. If Dylan Strome goes back to the Erie Otters of the Ontario Hockey League this year, and I don't know if he's eligible, Russ, for the World Junior this year, but if he doesn't play in the NHL, I mean, is he going to be somebody that has a good, realistic shot at making the Young Guns team? Because he wouldn't have played at the NHL level.
Outside chance, but probably not. You're probably right.
No, and they're deep enough at center that he's just would be too inexperienced.
Yeah. I thought about putting him on my bubble, but I didn't. So my forwards are, and I'll just go through these definites in the beginning, and if anyone, I'll go through them 3 at a time. If anyone has any issues with any of them, let me know. But to start off with, I have McKinnon, McDavid, and Eichel. I think are all definites on this team.
Seems right.
Goudreau, Monahan, and Couturier. My next 3. Then Nugent Hopkins, Galchenyuk, and Brendan Saad.
Okay. Those 9, 7, I think 6 of them are centers.
Right.
Yeah, but they're going to move those centers.
They're going to move them. Yeah.
Then it gets a little bit harder. Domi, Islanders Domi. I'm sorry. I meant the next player is Islanders Strome.
Oh, Ryan Strome. Okay.
Ryan Strome, Domi, and Reinhart are my next 3.
I think you have a chance of 2 of the 3 not making it, and possibly 3 of the 3 not making it. I mean, I think Ryan Strome has the best chance of the guys you mentioned.
Mm-hmm.
I think of the other ones, though, you're maybe missing on Jonathan Drouin, who I think is going to get a good look. Even if he's not having the greatest NHL year, I still think he's going to get a good look.
Yeah.
I don't think Domi would make this team. Domi would have to have really a Rookie of the Year season, I think, to make this team, and I think highly of him. I do.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
What about Domi and McDavid? I mean, they have played together. That part of my thought process was, we've seen this, right? That those guys have worked together really well.
I think after this season, Ryan Strome will be on the team.
Yeah. I think
he's got a really.
I don't think there'll be any argument.
I think he's a lock.
I do too.
Did you say?
What about both Monahan
yet? Did you even mention Sean Monahan yet?
Yeah, I did.
You did.
How about Johnny Gaudreau? You did say him.
I did say
You
Gaudreau.
mentioned Gaudreau.
He didn't say
I was
Gaudreau,
thinking
Monahan, and
forward
Couturier are my second three.
like I'll tell you what, like instead of Domi, I would probably take a guy like Mark Scheifele. Just as
Yeah, well, my last three are Lazar. We can argue all these guys. Lazar, Huberdeau, and Scheifele. So those are my last three.
Galchenyuk is another one I would take over Domi.
I think Lazar is a long
Galchenyuk
shot.
Marty.
I mean, he would have to have a really good second year to make his case. Just like Domi's going to have a big rookie year. Reinhardt's going to have a big rookie year, and the question mark is with Reinhardt, as I've said a couple times before when we were talking about the Sabres. He's 19 years old. If he doesn't make Buffalo, I mean, he may make the Sabres based on the fact they don't want to send him back to junior, and his birthday is in November, so they may hold him all over until he turns 20 to send him down to the American Hockey League for some experience. So if they do that, then I think his chances are next to nil. Yeah. Scheifele provides size. I think he's a really good player. Mm-hmm. Huberdeau is an interesting one, and Boone Jenner is also interesting in the fact that he plays with a lot of jam, and this team does not have a lot of players who play with jam.
Well, I had Jenner and Duclair as my possible bubbles players, so yeah.
Yeah, you said Bennett and Duclair?
Jenner.
Oh, I see Sam Bennett.
I like Boone Jenner too, a lot.
Yeah, so, Boone Jenner I like. Sam Bennett I like, because Bennett is a versatile guy. Like, he's another one of those guys you can move to wing, and he did have a really good impact. If he picks up where he left off last year, I think Bennett's going to be ahead of some of these other guys mentioned.
Yeah, Bennett I forgot about. I know, I'm thinking of him now. Like, it's just frustrating when you do this because you try to remember all these guys.
I mean, it's not. Listen, there's a lot of guys.
Yeah, but I would put Bennett in here too. Should you put Bennett over Reinhardt or?
Yeah, I put Bennett over Reinhardt and Domi for sure.
Yeah.
I completely agree with that.
Jenner over Lazar or?
Yeah, put Jenner over Lazar. Yes.
For sure.
Absolutely.
How about Duclair? Does Duclair factor into this at all?
He's in the same category as Domi. He's going to have a big
he has to prove it again.
Yeah.
But don't we think that those guys are going to have a shot at proving it? I mean, they're going to get a lot of time.
Of course they're going to have a shot. Some of those guys really have very little NHL experience so far.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah. They're gonna probably get first or second line ice time with Arizona. I mean, they're going to get a lot of exposure, but it's a question of whether if Domi scores 20 goals and is a candidate for Rookie of the Year, then he's going to be a candidate for this team.
Yeah, for sure. I like how they handled Domi so far. All right, well, that's good. So we got our forwards together. I'm going to be putting this all together in a big master list. Then we have to come up with our lines later when I simulate this on our video game, right? But defense is really impressive.
Oh, really?
I mean, maybe more impressive than almost any other defense except for USA and Canada. Perhaps? I don't know. Ekblad and Seth Jones, Morgan Riley and Dougie Hamilton, Trouba, and now we run into situations like we have Trouba. So to me, the Trouba, those five, no question, right?
Right.
I think so.
After that, you've got Ceci, from Ottawa.
Yeah.
Got Dumba. Got Severson. I'm going to throw Sanheim in there because I think he's going to make the Flyers and play a lot, and he's definitely put huge points in there too as well. And then you have Ryan Murray, who, if he's healthy, should be on this team. But
that's a big if.
So how do we find the last three defensemen out of this? Do we all agree on Trouba, Hamilton, Riley, Seth Jones, and Ekblad?
I agree.
Okay.
I would say even though it's an if, Murray will have the inside track. He just has to stay healthy.
Right.
I think Ceci, a lot of those young guys, has an inside track. And I think Severson, already having a year of NHL experience, will have the inside track over even Dumba because he's safer defensively than Dumba. Dumba's really like a risk-reward guy. And in these kinds of tournaments, at his age, they may not want to even go there.
Right. No, that's a good. Any thoughts?
Severson had a very nice rookie year.
Yeah, he did. This is a heck of a defense. Really, honestly, this is a fast, big, tough defense.
Good part to play. Yeah, they're going to be like, not only will they be good defensively, they have weapons offensively out of those guys.
Yeah.
That's crazy. It's a group. So we have say we got to fill our last defensive spot on here. So we're throwing Ryan Murray in there. So we have I think Ceci is pretty much, I think what we were agreeing on is maybe the seventh defenseman, but who was the eighth defenseman? Dumba, Severson, Sanheim.
You listed Griffin Reinhardt as amongst the list. I don't know whether I would. I mean, Dan.
I would disagree with you.
Yeah, exactly.
Unless he makes massive strides over this offseason.
I'm going for 8. I know Russ will disagree on this, but I'm going to go with Dumba. I just think that for a number 8, you're going to want a skilled guy, and he can move the puck, and he'll improve defensively. So that would be my 8. But I get what Russ said.
I like Dumba too, though. I mean, I don't hate that. I like Dumba a lot.
No, but what you said, there's a lot of logic to what you said about, because he is a risk taker, and But I figure with an 8, they can afford to have a guy with just some offensive ability.
Yeah, no, I think so too. Now, okay, so we'll go with. I think we can go with Dumba and CC there. So, is there a defenseman is there like a Sanheim type defenseman who could make it without having actually played? We obviously we don't know this yet. If a player comes into the league and makes a big impact.
Noah Hannafin.
Right, Noah Hannafin's another one, right? So
I think Hannafin would have a better chance than Sanheim because he's had sort of more international play than even Sanheim, and he'll play in the AHL. So I think unless Sanheim is playing with the Flyers and plays a full season, you'll have a better chance with Hannafin, to be honest.
Yeah, and ironically, if this team included, if it was the world and not just the U.S. and the Canadians, guys like Ristolainen and Provorov would be part of this.
Oh yeah.
Well, yeah, no, there's a lot. I mean, if you threw the world, and that was a question I had for the panel. If you threw the world at under 23, how competitive is that team? Like that, then it really gets crazy. I mean, this team's crazy already.
Yeah.
But the world of under 23?
If it was the world under 23, I would say they'd be one of the top 3.
Right. And this brings to my point: can this team medal?
I think the goaltending kills them. I mean, not to say that I don't think.
Right, we have to finish that. Gibson.
Yeah, I don't think. And you're gonna go. I'm not gonna list all 3 of them. I'll let you do that. But I'm just saying, right now, the number 1 is probably Gibson, and he's played in the playoffs and he's played at some points during the regular season, but he hasn't established himself with Anaheim, and when that's your best. I mean, that's a question mark. He could stand on his head, and he's played internationally before. But it's a question of whether he can stand up to the withering attack that Canada or the U.S. or somebody else would put up.
Well, as not surprising, I'm going to disagree with Mike. I don't think it's going to kill him. I mean, Connor Hellebuck played so well in the World Championship against some really talented NHL-laden teams. So I think it has some potential. Is it as good as the goaltending of the other teams? No, of course not. Experiences, but I do think it's the potential. Would anybody be stunned if Hellebuck steps up and kind of Gibson?
Yeah, well, we got a quick crazy echo there for a second. I mean, I'm going Hellebuck personally. I think is my top guy just because of what Kevin said, because of his appearance in the championship.
Who are our top 3? Ooh.
Oh, my top 3: Hellebuck, Gibson, and Kyle. I went with Kyle. Now, whether or not he's the third guy or not, you also have Malcolm Subban, Picard, Ruby, Comrie, Demko. There's a lot of other guys.
Yeah, you know what? I like your 3. I think Fucale has really improved off the ice, just in his mature approach, and always felt like he could play in a lot of situations. Hellebuck always was proving it to me, but a lot of people weren't sure about him because of college, and then in the World Championships proved it to everybody. I don't think Gibson's lost any gravitas, even though people were always looking at him as a potential star, and I still think he could be. I just think because he bounced a little up and down with Anaheim, I think that was more about coaching than it really was about him at times.
I would give. Go ahead, Dan. I'm sorry.
He was also banged up last year too. He battled injuries too.
He did.
I would give Pickard an outside chance at being the number 3 over a guy like Fucale, because Fucale hasn't played in the NHL yet, and I don't know. I mean, I don't know if he's going to break in this year, Russ. But
but this is where you might bring in a goalie that you want to have on the next team that has a chance to be your starter on the next team, because the third guy's not going to play much anyhow. I know this goes against the grain of what we said with some of the other things, but on the younger team, to me, it would make sense to bring in a guy if you think he could be the number 1 the next time, then maybe you do bring him in. And Fucale's got that kind of ability.
Yeah,
I think you got to look at John Gillies too. You look at what he did in college last year, what he's done internationally. He should get a look too.
Gillies will get a look. I think he came up a little short in clutch situations, but he's a terrific goalie. He is.
National.
But when Varlamov was hurt, Pickard came up with Colorado and actually played pretty well.
Sure.
So I think he would have a better chance. Plus, they don't know if this team is going to even be in existence 4 years from now. They may change the rules around and add Slovakia and another country, and you're not going to have a League of Nations and a 23 and under team. So the motivation for bringing up another guy who might be the number one a few years from now, I think is lessened by that.
Yeah, I think they're going to look at the international play of Gillies more than the NCAA play, and that's where he had a little hiccup. Not a big one, but a little one.
Yeah, I muted you, Kevin. Could you unmute yourself? Cool. So that's the team. And I'll say one thing before we move on to the next little topic I want to talk about for the end of this show. That's the team, and when you think about it, I mean, I really wasn't for this originally. Like, this was something that bothered me. I didn't like this format. But then the more I think about it, when you work out this team, you start to think, yeah, this is gonna be pretty cool. This is gonna be this. You can see where they're going with this. You can see
it's a marketable team. If you want to market this team to younger fans, that's a great way to do it.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think that they are going to compete with Canada and U.S. I think they could be a top 3 team in this tournament.
They could be.
They're right on the edge there. I mean Sweden, Russia, these are all great. They're both great teams. Finland's a little bit behind them perhaps, but this is a tough team. And what also is pretty interesting is the Island of Misfit Toys European team, which I'm working on, is actually not terrible either. But I don't think they can. I think this team's better than them. I really do.
I think that team will be good though.
Yeah.
The Swiss players have some quality players and some quality goaltenders.
They do.
We're going to go over all the teams, but I think it's not a stretch to say I think that the worst of 8 teams is going to be the Czech Republic.
That's true.
Yes.
It feels that way. I mean, I think the European Misfit Toys team might not be as good as the Czech. It's hard to say, but they do have some good players.
They're going to have better goaltending. I think that's going to be the issue.
Yeah, I was looking at the Czech Republic's defense. For potential defense for next year, and if you look at the 2014 Olympic team, they had, Lucas Krejcik and Thomas Caberlet at 40 years old, and I mean it was a group, and then 2 or 3 of them had retired already. So
that was a tough group. It was a tough group for sure. So let's move on to actual rumor news. Was we have the end of the Cody Franzen saga. By far, the most I ever expect to talk about Cody Franzen has been over the last several months. Going back to the trade deadline of this year, we have definitely discussed Cody Franzen more than imaginable ever before. But now here we sit. Cody Franzen has signed his 2-year deal with the Buffalo Sabres. Kind of expected because this is a team that could give him the money. They had the capabilities. Mike's going away there for a second. I think Mike's the problem there, so we'll find out later. with the echo. No, maybe not. Anyway, Cody Franzen, Kevin, Buffalo, what do you think?
Yeah, no, it's a good fit. I mean, they were a team that could afford to pay him a little bit of money, and he found out that he wasn't as desirable as he thought he was, I'm sure. But he's still a hockey player that can help a team, and he has some offensive upside. And the Buffalo Sabres are an up-and-coming team, so he should be pretty happy to go there.
It's a good signing for the Sabres. They got him for $3.3 million, which is ironically the deal that he signed. He turned down a 4-year offer from the Maple Leafs for a little over $4.5 million in February before they traded him. And in the end, he signs a 2-year deal with the Sabres for about $25,000 more than the $3.3 million he was making with the Leafs last year. So, I mean, I'm sure he's probably knocking his head against the wall that he didn't sign that contract with the Leafs. But he's in a situation where he's probably going to be the point man on the Buffalo power play, and he could rack up a bunch of points. And after this deal, he'll be 30 years old, and maybe he can still hit it big in free agency. So it's a good deal for both teams.
I don't like this deal for Buffalo because, to me, it takes time away and development time away from guys. Like, it's going to take minutes away from McCabe. It's going to take top power play away from Ristolainen. What is this really going to do for Buffalo? Is this going to make them a playoff team? I don't think so. So I don't know what they're really doing with this other than spending money because they have it.
I mean, the thing is, I think this prevents guys like Carlo Koliakovo and Matt Donovan and Chad Ruedel from making the lineup rather than. I think Ristolainen is going to be on their top power play, and France will be on.
I do too. I agree with Mike. I don't think it's going to take away from the development of their top guys. I think it's going to steal minutes away from the bottom group.
Well, it'll steal from McCabe and Pisak and guys like that, and you want them to develop. I mean, you do.
Well, there's logic to that, but. They want to be competitive. So.
Yeah, that's true.
I mean, McCabe might start down in Rochester possibly, and if that's the case, then maybe you're right. But I mean, to me, I think Franzen is going to probably be a top 4 defenseman on the Sabres, along with either Georges or Bogosian and Ristolainen. Pisak and McCabe will be in the mix on the bottom pairing. They're going to carry 7 or 8 defensemen, so a lot of these guys will be in and out of the lineup. But the Sabres are an incomplete team right now, and they needed a veteran defenseman to sort of fill out that blue line core, and this was a good addition.
Yeah, no, I think it's a very good decision as well. We haven't. Last thing I want to discuss, since we have a couple minutes here, is this. Have you guys heard about the Fetisov, who runs the Soviet hockey, one of the big people in Soviet hockey right now, coming out and saying that he believes young Russian players should not be allowed to come to the NHL for a few years.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's. I mean, Malkin came out and said that he's against that. Obviously, he said that it should be their choice. And Malkin's one of those guys who did sort of an old school escape from his team. in an era where you don't usually have to do that, but he did. That's exactly what Malkin did. Yeah, and the obvious thing here, I think, the first thing you think of right away is the Fetisov's nuts. I mean, this is obviously we have freedom and everything that we should be allowed to play where you want to play. But on the other hand of things, Fetisov's job right now with the KHL, you do get where he's coming from to a degree. So I just want to know if anyone here has any agreement with Fetisov in any of this. I mean, the obvious choice is that no, we should all have freedom to go where we want to go. But at the same time, I don't know. I'm a little devil's advocating this, but I can understand where he's coming from.
Here's my take. I think Putin is in his ear, and Putin is like, listen, I see the KHL's having trouble here, and we're losing all these Russian players to those guys, and why should we? Now, the flawed part of the argument is, well, we want to, continue to develop the Russian junior, we want to have our Russian junior hockey players here, but, to keep a Russian junior hockey player until 28, they're no longer a junior hockey player. If he was going to say, hey, they have to spend 3 years here.
Right.
Sure, then that's the same as, NCAA or any other league, and no one would have a problem with that. But the problem is they won't spend 3 years there. They'll spend 5 or 6, and if you draft a guy and you have to wait 5 or 6 years, you're not spending a first-round pick on that guy, even if he's worth it.
Right, and at 28 is the big no. I mean, I agree with you there, because part of me did think, like you said, the first 3 years, what's different than us forcing, like the Max Domi situation last year, like forcing a guy to play World Juniors in Canada. We're helping Canada out there. So there's some similarity. There's a little bit of precedence there. I think, Kevin, your thoughts on this?
Well, Fetisov is not nuts. He's in my mind, a hero for standing up to Tikhonov back in his day.
Yep.
Being one of the pioneers. B, I completely agree with Russ on this issue. I understand completely why they want to do it, but C, Malkin is right as well. I mean, it's really about an individual's choice, and I understand why they want to keep players back, and I can understand the Russians insisting that everybody honor the Russian contracts. And in my mind, if you want your Russian players to stay, then you have to just pay them better, because we only had last season like 26 or 27 Russians, and the reason we don't have more is because the KHL plays well. They have a shorter season. The guys like to stay home. So
and it's tax-free.
Yeah, so there's a lot of reasons. So they don't have to put in rules. They just have to make their league more attractive. The problem is the ruble has plummeted, And now we're having players, we saw it this year with Tikhonov coming over here and Panarin, and suddenly the NHL looks more attractive. So that's the answer for Russian hockey. If they want to keep their players, they have to just find a way to make the KHL more attractive, but they shouldn't, restrict the ability of a young Russian player to make up his own mind. But I'm respectful of Fetisov making an effort. He's not an advocate of the NHL; he's an advocate of the KHL.
Yeah. I mean, the whole goal of the KHL is to be a Russian developmental league for the Russian national team, not a feeder system for the NHL. And I think that's the problem. I mean, I'm almost sure, and I know there's a handshake agreement between the KHL and the NHL to honor each other's contracts, but I could almost see going down the road a relationship between the KHL and the NHL that's similar to the way the Japanese league feeds Major League Baseball, where you're paying a posting fee for some of these players. That would probably give money to the KHL, but I don't know if NHL teams would pay big money to get Russian players to come over to North America. So
depends on the players.
Well, here's the curious thing. Like last year, one of my higher-ranked goalies was Tretiak's grandson, right? And he never even got drafted. Now, you could say he didn't get drafted because he doesn't have talent, or you could say he didn't get drafted because nobody believed he would come over. And I think right now that's probably the prevailing thought. Like, because this year going into all the junior, the World Junior stuff, everybody's like, hey, he could be one of the top goalies, and he probably will be. And the problem is he's not going to get drafted until anybody feels like he will come over. So if this doesn't get cleared up, you're not going to see Russians getting drafted in the first round in future drafts. You're just not.
That's a good point. Very good point. Dan, anything to add?
No, I agree. I agree with Russ, too. If the KHL wants to come to an agreement similar to Canadian Juniors or the NCAA, I think there's going to be no issues here. But if there's not, if you have to keep your players until they're 28, they can't come to the NHL at 28, then these kids aren't going to get drafted, and you're going to see a return to the Cold War.
And almost on cue to what we were just talking about, Elliot Friedman from Sportsnet is reporting that Andrei Kostin was considering going on a PTO to the Calgary Flames, but has a contract with the KHL team and is not coming over because of that.
There you go. Right on cue.
Well, and they've already seen, over the last several years, this past season, this past draft was a little different, but there was a great reluctance by NHL teams to draft Russians because they thought they were going to stay over with the KHL. So, it's only because the KHL has problems that, they feel like they need rules to keep their players.
Right, that's a good point too.
I think it's one thing if you draft a goalie later in the middle rounds, you can draft a goalie, and if they're not ready till they're 24 or 25, or even if they don't come over till they're 28, that's fine. They have a much longer lifespan. But if you're not going to spend a first round pick on a kid you can't be convinced is going to be around for 5 or 6 years.
No, that's a good point. Well, to end the show today, I want to do this for you, Mike. Pictures of Phil Kessel skating as a Pittsburgh Penguin.
He looks sleek.
He looks
trim.
He looks.
Yeah, somebody had a picture of. Oh, never mind. I'm not gonna go there.
There you go. Smiling and happy, and he definitely looks happy.
Is that a smile?
Was it on Tinder, Mike? What are you thinking at?
No, I said somebody had a picture of Phil Kessel and hamburgers and hot dogs going into his mouth on Twitter. I didn't want to go down that road.
Smile. Look at that smile.
Look at that smile. He's a happy man.
Yep. Wouldn't you be?
Yeah. Well, ironically, the Toronto Maple Leafs in the last 2 days have invited Curtis Glencross, and this morning have announced that they're inviting Brad Boyes to their training camp as an invite. So if you've ever played a game in the NHL and you're a free agent, Toronto will be giving you a call.
There you go.
That Maple Leaf weighs heavy on your chest. He looks pretty good right now.
Here's an odd bit of trivia. Brad Boyes is a Maple Leaf first-round pick who never played a game as a Maple Leaf.
There you go.
As most of the Maple Leafs first-round picks first spelled out.
He's had a long NHL career, but he never played one game with the Leafs.
Like Tuukka Rask.
Sure. All right, guys, that's all the time we have for today. But thanks, Kevin, for dropping out and hanging out with us for a while there. And, remember, guys, without the buzz, it is just hockey. We will talk to you tomorrow.